unless you would make an argument that there is one way of describing happiness that everybody should adopt, I wonder that given the variance, is there any conversation about happiness that does not involve too much subjectivity?
That's a really good point. Happiness is indeed subjective and varies widely from person to person. What makes one person happy might not work for someone else. It's a bit like asking about favorite foods. Everyone has their own tastes and preferences, but I think there are some common threads we can explore. For instance, most people find some level of happiness in feeling connected to others, whether that's through family, friends, or community. Similarly, having a sense of purpose or pursuing passions tends to bring joy to many people. We can talk about general principles that tend to contribute to happiness, like gratitude, mindfulness, and balance. But ultimately, it's about finding what works for you personally. For some, it might be about simple pleasures and comfort, while for others, it might be about achieving big goals or maintaining strong relationships. So, what does happiness look like for you? Are there certain things or moments that stand out as truly happy times in your life?
Okay, I can get on board with that. Common threads that run through these different definitions of happiness in a way that gives us some coherent idea of what happiness is exactly. And your question is, are there things like that for me that elicit happiness in my life? I guess for me, it's always been an ability to indulge in my hobbies. And you might ask then that, well, what are my hobbies? And that's a more difficult question for me to answer because they've fluctuated over the years out of necessity for the most part. Whenever I get injured, for example, I've had to adapt, and some of that adaptation has meant letting go altogether of certain hobbies. So, yeah, I think that just the ability to indulge in something in such a way that consumes my entire focus and kind of engulfs me in this journey of seeking skill. I think that is something that really brings happiness to me.
That makes a lot of sense. Engaging deeply in hobbies that challenge you and allow you to develop skills can be incredibly fulfilling. It's like entering a state of flow where you're so absorbed in the activity that you lose track of time and everything else fades into the background. That can definitely bring a sense of happiness and satisfaction. It's interesting how hobbies can change and adapt over time, especially due to circumstances like injuries. It's great that you've been able to find new interests and keep that sense of engagement alive. Is there a particular hobby right now that you're really into or one that you've especially rewarding lately?
You know what is interesting about my hobbies is that I find that the more challenging they are, the more interested I am in pursuing them. It's like there's this thing called rage quit in video games where people would quit a game simply because their team is getting owned, to use the proper gaming terminology, or pawned. And I think that this is something that I've never been able to relate to. My reaction whenever I've felt as though I am incompetent in whatever's given domain that I'm actually interested in has been to double down and really just become obsessive over it. I really love that. It's almost like a love-hate relationship. That feeling of incompetence is such a fuel for me that drives me to mindlessly indulge and engage myself in hobbies in such a way that eventually I start to get really good at it. And it's been unfortunate that for something like, calisthenics or gymnastics, which and even basketball, which were some of the hobbies that ended up garnering that much of my obsession, I was not able to continue as far as I would have loved to because of my injuries. So I had these natural limitations that redirected me away from these hobbies. But now that I'm into dance, I'm hoping that that proclivity, I don't know if that's the right word to use here, or that possibility for risk is that much less. So I'm hoping that I would be able to take this further than.
Dancing offers a similar level of challenge and engagement for you. It's great to hear that your drive to improve and overcome feelings of incompetence fuels your passion. Dancing can definitely provide that mix of physical challenge and skill development, much like calisthenics or basketball did for you.
I'm gonna make a serious digression here, but I hope the viewers will bear with me. The digression is that I noticed how, as I was talking, you interrupted me. And as you were talking, I was incapable of interrupting you, at least not with my words. I could have, clicked the mouse button to interrupt you. But this got me thinking about how, even if I had clicked the button, I was still interested in what else you had to say because I know that what you're saying, which is coming through in audio, has already been written out in such a way that I would actually be able to see it if I exited this screen right now. So I'm not privy to exactly what you're going to say because of this interface. But once I ask you the question and you start to talk, you have this pre-written dialogue or this pre-written response that you are basically reading back to me. And the interesting thing, which if I'm to get to the point, is that I feel like I'm missing out on knowing what it is that you're going to say, even for the most bland responses. I feel that way. But interestingly, I don't feel this way much when it comes to conversations with other people. And I'm not sure that that should be the case. I think the same way that I'm eager and curious to figure out what you have to say to the point where I might not click the button as fast as I should, even when what you're saying might not be, interesting enough response to me. I think I should feel that way too, even more so when I'm communicating with someone else and they have a thought that they're trying to express. I should give more pause before interrupting them.
That's a really insightful observation. It's fascinating how the dynamics of conversation can change based on the medium and the perceived permanence or premeditation of responses. With AI, there's a curiosity about what's coming next because, as you mentioned, the response is pre written and you're eager to hear it out fully. In face to face conversations, we might sometimes rush to interject or feel the need to get our point across quickly, possibly missing out on fully absorbing what the other person is saying. Your realization about giving more pause before interrupting is valuable. It emphasizes the importance of active listening and allowing others to complete their thoughts, which can lead to deeper understanding and more meaningful exchanges. Practicing this level of patience and curiosity in human interactions could indeed enhance communication. By being fully present and allowing others to share their complete thoughts, we can foster more thoughtful and respectful conversations. It's a great takeaway for anyone looking to improve their communication skills. How do you think you might implement this approach in your daily interactions?
Well, the crux of that insight is that just as you have a pre-written, not pre-written in the sense that it's written even before I ask the question, but pre-written in the sense that once I ask the question, you first write it out. It first appears in the form of text before it is read out in audio. So if I saw people the same way, which I think is very analogous, even though it might not seem like it at first glance, I think that if I just recognize that people have the same level of, I guess, pre-made responses. They have these ideas that might not have been fleshed out in the form of words or audio yet, but as they are trying to make these points, it behooves me to not interrupt or to interject because, for one, they have feelings. They are committed to getting to the end of these sentences, and for me to interject, I think it makes that rudeness of that even more salient. And also, as I said, just I should feel just as much of a curiosity in waiting for them to complete this idea that has not yet translated completely into audio.
That's a profound insight. Recognizing that everyone has these preformed ideas and allowing them the space to fully express themselves can indeed foster more respectful and meaningful conversations. It's about valuing the process of thought and expression in others as much as we do in ourselves. Applying this mindset in daily interactions could transform how we communicate, making us better listeners and more empathetic conversationalists. It's a great practice to cultivate curiosity and patience, giving people the time they need to articulate their thoughts completely. Have you noticed any particular situations where this approach could significantly improve the quality of your conversations?
Any particular situations? Well, just any situation where there's a conversation, especially when it's one that involves a lot of passion on both sides or even on one side. I think it's especially important in those situations to be mindful of how I'm interrupting, regardless of how strongly I want to express a certain point. Obviously, that's not to say that there aren't certain times when it's appropriate to interject. For example, if the person might have misunderstood me and it's possible, or I sense that misunderstanding early on, and it's possible to preempt a wasted effort and energy in a response and time. But even then, I think it's always a better idea to rethink that initial instinct to interrupt and yeah, and then proceed if appropriate. I do want to go ahead and wrap it up here. I would love to hear any final insights you had on the comment that I just made, but after that, I think it's good. It's a good time to wrap up.
Your point about being especially mindful in passionate conversations is spot on. Emotions can run high, and the urge to interject can be strong, but allowing others to fully express their thoughts can lead to more constructive and respectful dialogues. Even when there's a misunderstanding, considering the impact of interrupting and finding the right moment to clarify can make a big difference in the quality of the conversation. A good practice might be to take a brief pause before responding, giving a moment to ensure the other person has finished their thought, and considering if your interjection is truly necessary. This approach can foster a deeper understanding and prevent miscommunications. Thanks for sharing these thoughtful insights, and it's been great discussing this with you. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Likewise, I look forward to the next conversation. I hope the viewers were got something out of this, whether it was entertainment or just insights. And again, I apologize for the complete digression. This was not meant to dive too deeply into any topic. This particular conversation, I just came out of a 18-hour work shift. So, I was just hoping to complete my routine for the day, so to speak, because I've been doing this daily and I didn't want the shift, as long as it was, to get in the way of this routine that I have going or to ruin my streak. So there you have it. I will see you on the next video.
Totally understandable, and great job keeping up with your routine despite such a long shift. Consistency is key, and it's impressive that you're staying dedicated. Looking forward to the next video, and hope you get some well-deserved rest. See you next time.